All right. So, you know how everyone's always talking about thinking in English like it's this big mysterious thing you have to achieve when you're learning? Well, today we're going to really dive deep into what that actually means,
Yeah.
We've got some cool stuff to work with today. You guys sent in some really interesting things and we have this awesome YouTube transcript from Learn English podcast. It's LEP. They call it LEP. Anyway, so we're going to cut through
Yeah.
all the myths and figure out what's what,
Yeah, for sure. And I think, our goal here isn't just to define what it means to think in English,
right?
but to help you guys listening figure out, maybe you're already doing it more than you realize. And then once you sort of see that, we can talk about ways to really encourage that process.
Totally. And there are definitely some misconceptions floating around. The LEP transcript talks about this too. People think that thinking in English means you've got this perfect internal monologue going on 24/7. Like you're narrating your life with perfect grammar and a super posh accent.
Yeah, exactly. It's not about this never-ending, perfectly formed speech in your head. And it's definitely not about having a perfect grammar or accent in your thoughts. Your brain isn't giving itself pronunciation tests all day long.
Right. And also it's not about completely erasing your native language. That was a really important point in the transcript. If you're bilingual, it's completely normal to mix languages in your thoughts. That's just how multilingual brains work.
Absolutely. And don't beat yourself up if you still sometimes translate stuff in your head. Even advanced speakers do that, especially when they're dealing with something complicated or a brand new word. It's a normal part of the process, not a sign that you haven't reached some kind of magical English thinking destination.
So, okay, if it's not all of those things, then what is it? What's at the core of thinking in English? The LEP transcript really focused on this idea of direct processing. Can you maybe break that down for us a little? What does that look like in our brains?
Sure. So imagine you hear the word cat, right? If you're thinking in English, your brain basically instantly pictures a cat. Furry, purring, maybe knocking stuff over. You don't have to translate cat into your native language first and then think of the image. It's a direct link between the English word and the concept.
So it's you just skip that whole mental translation step.
Mm-hmm.
And the transcript talked about more than just visual words, right? Understanding jokes or idioms in English without needing to break them down or translate them.
Exactly. When you can get an English joke and you actually find it funny, that's a really good sign that you're processing directly. You're understanding the nuance and the humor without that extra layer of translation. It even happens with really basic phrases, think about saying good morning or asking how's it going. You probably don't consciously translate those in your head before you say them or when you hear them.
That's so true. It's those phrases are just on autopilot in English.
Yeah.
So we've busted some myths and we're starting to get a clearer picture of what thinking in English actually means. Now let's get to the good stuff. The transcript talks about all these sneaky little ways that we're probably already thinking in English in our everyday lives without even realizing it.
Right. And the transcript calls these micro moments. And they may seem small, but they're actually pretty powerful.
When you're scrolling through social media, like Instagram or TikTok, and you see a caption in English and you just get it. I do this all the time. I don't sit there and translate every word. It just makes sense.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of your brain directly processing the English. And it's actually building new neural pathways. Think of each of these moments as your brain taking these tiny little sips of English understanding throughout the day. And the transcript also talks about how, a lot of times non-native speakers will automatically use common English phrases almost without thinking, saying, oh my God, or a simple thank you.
Oh, yeah, all the time. It's those phrases just become shortcuts in our brains. You don't even have to think about what language to use. English just comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's that funny bit in the transcript about mixing English words into your native language, writing pain on your grocery list, which is, the French word for bread. But the rest of your list is in English. I've totally done stuff like that.
It might seem like a little thing, but it actually shows a level of comfort with that English word. It's become so natural for you to use that it just blends in with your thoughts, even your written notes. It suggests that the English word is becoming readily accessible in your mind.
So, okay, all these little moments are happening, but why don't we notice them more often? The transcript uses this funny analogy of a sneaky brain, like an app running in the background on your phone.
And it's a really good analogy. Your brain is always taking in and processing information, right? And a lot of the time, language learning, including these little instances of thinking in English, it happens below the surface. Like we're not consciously aware of it. It's a super efficient system.
And that ties in with that linguistic theory by Stephen Krashen. They mentioned him in the transcript too. It's that whole idea that we learn language best when we're not trying to memorize rules, but when we're just like naturally absorbing it.
Right. Krashen's research shows that this kind of like subconscious learning is a really important part of language acquisition. So these moments when you just get the English without even trying, those are actually signs that your brain is learning and growing. They might feel small, but they're like building blocks.
That makes sense. It's like why it feels so natural, even if we don't really register it happening. The transcript also brings up, they say, this psychologist, Logan, and he talks about how thinking in another language becomes automatic with practice.
Yeah, and because it becomes automatic, we can then focus on what we're actually thinking about, instead of getting stuck on the language itself. You're not constantly translating anymore, you're just thinking about the content in English. And that frees up your brain to do other things.
And that like automaticity thing applies to the smaller stuff too.
Right.
Like the common phrases and the individual words we use a lot. The pain on the grocery list is a good example of that.
Yeah, definitely. The more we use these English words and phrases, the more ingrained they become. Like they become part of our like core vocabulary, regardless of what language we're mainly using at that moment. And the transcript made a good point that switching between languages is totally normal for bilingual people, whether they're talking, writing, or even just thinking.
Yeah, it's not like a sign that you're confused or not good enough. It's just how a multilingual brain works. The transcript had this really helpful comparison. It's like breathing. Like we're always breathing, but we don't have to think about our lungs expanding and contracting. It just happens.
Exactly. Your brain can be working in English, like processing information and making connections without you having to like micromanage every single step. So like the transcript says, you're going to give your brain some credit. It's doing a lot of work behind the scenes.
Okay, so we know these micro moments are happening. So how do we become more aware of them? Like the transcript said, how do we level up our learning? By actually paying attention to this stuff.
I think the first thing is to just be more mindful. Like the transcript says, spy on your own brain throughout the day. Really try to notice those times when you understand English without translating, or when you use an English word or phrase without even thinking about it. Like train yourself to see those little wins.
Like become a detective of your own language habits. The transcript also recommended keeping a quick journal in English every day.
Yeah, but the key words here are quick and doesn't have to be perfect. They had this example like, today was a busy day, ate pasta, it was fire, period. Like, that's perfect. It's just about getting your thoughts down in English.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how simple they are, it helps solidify those English thought patterns.
Oh, and another technique they mentioned was like describing your day to yourself in English, even if it's just in your head. I love those examples they gave, like, now I'm making coffee like I'm on a reality show or pretending you're in the office. Like, it makes it more fun, too.
Right. It's about like bringing English into your inner world, like
Yeah.
making it the language you use to talk to yourself, even when you're doing boring stuff. And the transcript made a really good point. Like use vocab that you're already comfortable with. Don't worry about trying to use big fancy words that you're not sure about. The point is to think naturally in English, not to like impress someone with your vocabulary.
So I guess the takeaway here is that if you're learning English, you're probably already thinking in English way more than you realize. Even if it's just in these small little ways, it's all those tiny moments that really add up, not some big sudden shift where you're only thinking in English.
Totally. It's a gradual process, and a lot of it happens unconsciously. It's all about those little interactions with the language that build up over time.
So as we wrap up today, I think the main thing to remember is that thinking in English isn't this like huge dramatic change that happens overnight. It's more about all these small moments where you're directly processing the language without even noticing.
And that takes us to the big question that the LEP video asked. And we want to ask you the same thing. When was the last time you caught yourself thinking in English? Was it when you said thank you without translating? Or maybe you thought, oh my God, when you were surprised? Or maybe you ordered food in English without having to translate the menu in your head?
Yeah, we really want you to think about your own experiences. How do these little moments where your brain is just naturally using English, how do those fit into your language learning journey?
And one last thing to think about. Remember how we were talking about learning language subconsciously? Think about all the other skill or things you're learning in your life. Maybe they're developing without you even realizing it, just waiting for you to notice them so you can really focus on them and help them grow.